Hey everyone, welcome back to Fluent English Pod, where we help you train your mind to think in English and speak fluently. I'm Dave with our co-host Emma.
Hey, we're so glad you're here. Whether you're listening on your way to work, while making dinner, or just winding down for the day, thanks for spending this time with us.
Whether you are a new listener or a long-time one, we welcome you to our English podcast. Let's hear our today's topic.
Today we're diving into a topic that's a little heavy but super important: self-disappointment. We all know that feeling when you let yourself down, and it just sticks with you for a while.
Yeah, it's that moment when you look in the mirror and think, why didn't I do better? Why didn't I try harder? It's a tough emotion to sit with, but it's something we've all experienced.
Absolutely. And the thing about self-disappointment is that it's so personal. It's not about what others think of you. It's about what you think of yourself.
Exactly. So today we're going to talk about why we feel this way, how it affects us, and most importantly, how we can move forward.
Let's start by defining it. Self-disappointment is that heavy, sinking feeling you get when you fall short of your own expectations. It's not about what others think of you. It's about what you think of yourself. It's that moment when you look in the mirror and feel like you've let yourself down.
Right. And it can happen in so many areas of life. Maybe you didn't meet a goal at work, like that promotion you were working toward, but you missed the deadline for a key project. Or maybe you said something hurtful in a moment of anger, and now you can't stop replaying it in your mind, wishing you'd handled it differently.
Exactly. Or think about personal commitments, like promising yourself you'd start exercising regularly, but weeks go by and you haven't even laced up your sneakers. You wake up one day, look at yourself and think, why can't I just stick to this? Why am I like this?
Yeah, or even something as simple as procrastinating on a project you were really excited about. You had this big dream. Maybe it was writing a story, learning a new language, or starting a side hustle. But instead of working on it, you kept putting it off. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. And now you're sitting there thinking, wow, I had so much time and I wasted it.
And that's the thing. Self-disappointment often comes with a side of guilt. It's not just I messed up, it's I messed up and I'm mad at myself for it. It's that voice in your head saying, you knew better. You could have done better. Why didn't you?
It's such a raw, personal emotion. It's not like failing a test or losing a game where you can kind of brush it off. This is about you, your choices, your actions, your expectations. And when you don't meet them, it cuts deep.
Absolutely. And what makes it even harder is that it's often tied to things we really care about. It's not just about missing a deadline or skipping the gym. It's about the bigger picture. It's about feeling like you're not living up to the person you want to be.
Yeah, like when you set a New Year's resolution to be more present with your family, but then work gets crazy and you realize you've been distracted and distant for weeks. You look at your partner or your kids and you feel this pang of guilt because you know you could have done better.
Or when you promise yourself you'll finally take care of your mental health. Maybe start therapy or practice mindfulness, but life gets in the way and you keep pushing it to the back burner. Then one day you're overwhelmed and realize, I've been neglecting myself and I'm the only one to blame.
It's those moments when you feel like you've betrayed yourself. Like you had this vision of who you wanted to be and you didn't live up to it. And that's what makes self-disappointment so painful. It's not just about the action, it's about the meaning behind it.
Exactly. It's not just, I didn't do the thing. It's, I didn't do the thing and now I feel like I've failed myself. I think it's helpful to share some personal experiences here. Dave, do you remember a time when you felt really disappointed in yourself?
For me, it was last year when I decided to get serious about saving money. I set this goal to save a certain amount by the end of the year, and I even made a budget. But then, little by little, I started slipping. I'd tell myself, oh, it's just one takeout meal, or I'll skip saving this month and make up for it later.
Oh, I've been there. It's so easy to justify those small things in the moment.
Exactly. And by the time December rolled around, I realized I hadn't even saved half of what I'd planned. I was so frustrated with myself because I knew I could have done better. I had the plan, I had the tools, but I just didn't stick to it.
That's such a relatable example. For me, it was when I promised myself I'd finally start journaling every day. I bought this beautiful notebook and I was so excited to build this habit. But after a few days, I started skipping it. I'd tell myself, I'm too tired tonight, I'll do it tomorrow.
And then tomorrow turns into next week, right?
Exactly. Before I knew it, months had gone by, and that notebook was still sitting on my table, untouched. I felt so disappointed in myself because I knew how much journaling could have helped me. It was something I really wanted for my mental health.
That's the thing. Self-disappointment isn't just about the outcome. It's about the gap between what you could have done and what you actually did. It's that feeling of knowing you had the potential, but you didn't follow through.
And it's not even about big, life-changing goals. Sometimes it's the small, everyday things, like when you tell yourself you'll go to bed early, but then you stay up scrolling on your phone until 2 a.m.
Ugh, yes. And the next morning, you're exhausted and you're just mad at yourself because you knew better.
Or when you promise yourself you'll call a friend you haven't talked to in a while, but weeks go by and you still haven't picked up the phone. You feel guilty because you know how much it would mean to them and to you, but you just keep putting it off.
It's those little things that add up, and they can really weigh on you.
I think part of why it hurts so much is because it's tied to our self-worth. When we disappoint ourselves, it feels like we're not living up to who we think we should be. It's not just about failing at a task. It's about failing ourselves. It's that voice in your head saying, you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not capable enough.
Exactly. And sometimes we hold ourselves to impossibly high standards. We create this image of who we should be, this perfect version of ourselves that never makes mistakes, never gets tired, never falls short. But the truth is, we're human. And humans are messy. We stumble, we falter, we fall. And when we do, it's easy to forget that it's okay to not be perfect.
Right. And there's also this fear that if we let ourselves down, we'll keep doing it. It's like, if I can't trust myself, who can I trust? That fear can be paralyzing. It's not just about the mistake you made today. It's about the worry that you'll make the same mistake tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. It's this spiral of doubt that makes you question everything about yourself.
That's such a good point. It's almost like we lose faith in ourselves, and that's a really hard place to be. When you lose faith in yourself, it's like you're standing on shaky ground. You start to wonder, can I really do this? Am I even capable of change? And that doubt can eat away at you, making it even harder to take the next step.
It's like you're trapped in this cycle. You disappoint yourself and then you feel guilty. That guilt makes you doubt yourself, and that doubt makes it harder to try again. And the longer you stay in that cycle, the harder it is to break free.
Yeah, and what makes it even worse is that it's so isolating. When you disappoint someone else, you can apologize, make amends, and move on. But when you disappoint yourself, it's like you're stuck in this internal battle. There's no one to forgive you but you. And sometimes that's the hardest person to forgive.
Exactly. It's like you're your own worst critic. You wouldn't talk to a friend the way you talk to yourself when you're feeling this way. You'd say, it's okay, everyone makes mistakes. You're doing your best. But when it comes to yourself, it's so much harder to be kind.
And that's the real tragedy of self-disappointment. It robs us of our own compassion. We forget that we're allowed to be imperfect, that we're allowed to struggle, that we're allowed to need time to grow. Instead, we beat ourselves up for not being where we think we should be. And that just makes the whole thing even harder.
It's like we're holding ourselves to this impossible standard, and when we don't meet it, we feel like we've failed. But the truth is, growth isn't linear. It's messy, and it's slow, and it's full of setbacks. And that's okay.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. Recognizing that self-disappointment doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means you're human. And being human means you're allowed to stumble as long as you keep trying to move forward.
Before we go further, let's take a quick break to explain some of the words we've used so far. This is especially helpful for our English learners.
Great idea. Let's start with the word procrastinating. This means delaying or postponing something you need to do. For example, if you have a project due next week but keep putting it off, you're procrastinating.
Next, self-worth. This refers to how much value or respect you have for yourself. If you have high self-worth, you believe you're valuable and capable.
Another word we used is standards. This means a level of quality or achievement you expect from yourself. For example, if you have high standards, you expect a lot from yourself.
And finally, faith. In this context, it means trust or confidence. So when we say lose faith in yourself, it means you stop trusting or believing in your own abilities.
Thanks for breaking those down, Emma. Let's get back to the discussion.
So, how do we get past this? How do we stop tearing ourselves apart and start healing?
I think the first step is to face the feeling head on. Don't bury it or pretend it's not there. Sit with it, even if it's uncomfortable. Ask yourself, why do I feel this way? What's really at the heart of this disappointment?
Yes. And then it's about shifting your perspective. Instead of saying, I failed, try saying, I'm growing. Every stumble, every setback is a chance to learn something new about yourself.
Exactly. Take my saving money example, for instance. I had this goal to save a big chunk of my income, but I kept spending on things I didn't really need. When I finally looked at my bank account, I felt so disappointed in myself. But instead of staying stuck in that feeling, I asked myself, why did this happen? I realized I wasn't as disciplined as I thought I was. That was hard to admit, but it was also a wake-up call. It helped me set smaller, more realistic goals, like saving $100 a month, and that made all the difference.
And for me, with journaling, I had to learn to forgive myself for the delay. I kept beating myself up for not starting it on time, but then I realized life happens. Work gets busy, relationships need attention, and sometimes you just need a break. What mattered was that I didn't give up on the dream. I kept coming back to it, even if it took longer than I planned.
That's so important. Self-disappointment doesn't have to be the end of the road. It can be a turning point, a moment where you decide to be kinder to yourself, to set more realistic expectations, and to keep moving forward, even if it's just one small step at a time.
And if you're listening to this and feeling stuck in self-disappointment right now, I want you to know something. It's okay to feel this way. It's okay to be upset with yourself, but don't let that feeling define you. You're not your mistakes. You're not your setbacks. You're the person who's brave enough to keep trying even when it's hard.
Exactly. And sometimes that means letting go of the idea that you have to be perfect. You don't. You just have to be human. And being human means you'll make mistakes, but it also means you'll grow, adapt, and keep going.
So if you're feeling overwhelmed right now, take a deep breath. Acknowledge the feeling, but don't let it consume you. Remind yourself that this is just one moment in your journey. You've overcome challenges before, and you can do it again.
And if you're struggling to forgive yourself, try this. Imagine you're talking to a close friend who's feeling the same way. What would you say to them? You'd probably say, "It's okay. You're doing your best. You're allowed to make mistakes." Now, say that to yourself. You deserve the same kindness and compassion you'd give to someone else.
And remember, progress isn't about being perfect. It's about taking small steps, even when they feel hard. Maybe today that means just writing one sentence in your journal or saving $10 instead of $100. That's still progress. That's still moving forward.
And if you fall back into old habits, don't beat yourself up. It's not about how many times you fall. It's about how many times you get back up. Every time you try again, you're proving to yourself that you're stronger than your setbacks.
This time, you're coming stronger than before. So if you're feeling stuck in self-disappointment right now, know this. You're not alone. We've all been there. And you have the power to turn this moment into a stepping stone, not a roadblock.
And that's something to be proud of.
So to wrap this up, self-disappointment is a universal experience, but it doesn't define you. It's just a moment in time, and you have the power to grow from it.
Absolutely. And if you're feeling this way right now, just know that you're not alone. We've all been there, and we're all rooting for you.
If this topic resonated with you, let us know in the comments. Share your own experiences with self-disappointment and how you've overcome it.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time with another meaningful topic like this.